The Lord bless you real good. This is the voice of Emancipation. And I welcome you all to this broadcast. I'm trusting the Lord that in these few minutes, you will receive a word that will empower you, a word that will become your word. Because words are things. If you can catch your word, then that word can become the very thing you are looking for. That is why in the book of Hebrews, he said, by faith we understood that the world was framed by the word of God. He spoke, let there be light, and there was light. So until you initiate a word, there is no motion. And that is why it's important you don't get distracted when you are listening to the word. Because like the psalmist says, the entrance of his word, it gives light and understanding unto the simple words. When you go to school, from kindergarten to primary to secondary to high school to tertiary, all you hear is words. If you want to become a doctor, there is a word that you need to hear. And that word is conditioned according to the language of medicine. If you want to become a lawyer, all you need to hear is words, legal terms. You want to become an engineer, there is a word for an engineer. There's a word for a doctor. There's a word for a nurse. So in everything in life, to become anything, you need people to talking to you. That is why you must value any opportunity you have to hear the word. Very important. To begin, let us have a word of prayer, because I'll be speaking on where there is no vision. But I believe in the power of prayer. Let's have a word of prayer. Almighty God, we thank you for today. We bless your name for today. We give you all the glory and we give you all the honor for this opportunity and for this hour to speak the word into my listener, to bring a Rhema word into those who are listening to me, which will become their own word. I pray for grace for my listeners. As they hear this word, let it be the very words that will empower them, that will lift them, that will bless them. This I ask in the name and nature of the universal Christ. Amen. In Proverbs chapter 29 and verse 18, the Bible says, where there is no vision, the people cast off restraint. Where there is no vision. Some other translations say, where there is no vision, the people perish. Now, before we get into it, you have to look at it. What is this particular verse saying? Because You don't just get into the Bible, pick a word, and begin to run with it. You must study enough to understand the context within which these words were spoken, because that will enable you to have an understanding of what was the intent of the one who wrote it. All scriptures is inspired, but it was written in the language of men. So, to get a proper understanding of what they said, there is need for you to go back to check. What did he mean when he was saying it? What was in his thought while he was saying it? What was in his heart when he was saying it? What were the common events of his life as at the time he was saying it? And what was the culture of that time? Who was even the king as at that time? How was the world being governed at that time? So these are the things that surrounds every biblical interpretation. It was inspired, but it was written in the language of men. And so for you to be able to get into the understanding of that very word, you have to understand the common events of that era. So when Proverbs 29 verse 13 says, where there is no vision, the people perish, they cast off restraint. What was it trying to say? The word vision here does not mean personal ambition or goals, but refers to divine revelation. We are speaking about the scriptures to understand the intent of it. Proverbs 29 verse 18, where there is no vision, the people perish. So the word vision here does not mean personal ambition or goals, but refers to divine revelation, God's guidance through his word and prophetic insight. So when you see Proverbs 29 verse 18 said, where there is no vision, the people perish. In other words, it's saying, no revelation of God and his word. Now you need to understand the context of the Israelite or the children of Israel in those days, because the Bible was written mostly by Jewish prophets and their audience were the Jewish people. And so we need to go back to study the culture of that time. The people in that time believed that to have a clear vision of God, the prophets and the priests are the ones who must ensure that the people have it. Because there was a tradition in those days where when people want to hear from God, they look for their prophets. When people want to hear from God, they look for their priest, because they believe that in the mouth of the priest, the law in the mouth of the priest, the law resides. And so if you want to get to hear what God is saying for the now, if you want to get to hear what God is doing for the now, look for a prophet. But there is a scenario in 1 Samuel chapter 3 and verse 1 where it says, open vision became scarce. That's because according to them, God stopped speaking. In other words, there was no prophet to expound the law, no prophet or Levite to teach the knowledge of the Lord. So when these two channels are missing, it means there is no means of grace. And so this will result to the word of the Lord being scarce. Simply because there are no channels. Because you have to understand, number one, the tradition of the Israelites in those days. When they want to hear from God, they go to their prophets, they go to their priests. The temple was designed to put these things into place. And that is why when Moses would come up with the tabernacle, he built it according to the pattern that was given to him. And what is the pattern? In the temple, you have the entrance, you have the courtyard, and then you have the holy entrance, the gate, the courtyard, the entrance, and then you have the holy place, which you have the table of the shewbread, candle, lampstick. And from that, we now go to where we call the Holy of Holies, which is another curtain. You have to open it and go there. That Holy of Holies, to them, they believe that that is where God speaks. That is where the word of the Lord comes. And that is why in that Holy of Holies, there was the Ark of the Covenant, which had two cherubim standing by the right and by the left, overshadowing the ark. And the top and the cover of that ark was what they call mercy seat. Now, if you pull the cover of that ark and look at what is under that ark, it is the law. And over the years, even Aaron's staff was preserved because it was a staff that budded and had some fresh almond within 24 hours. When some men came up and began to say, is it only Aaron and that God has called? Is it only Moses that God has called? And then Moses said, okay, for us to prove that, bring your staff, bring your staffs, and let's put it in the tabernacle. And which one? The one that grows within 24 hours is the one that God has chosen. And that of Aaron grew out. And so they always believed that the word of the Lord resided with the prophet and the Levites and their priests. And so the next word there says, when there is no vision, the people are without restraint. In other words, they are unrestrained, which means without discipline, lacking moral direction, living without boundaries. I believe you've understood Proverbs chapter 29 and verse 18, because we are progressing beyond that. Where there is no vision simply means no prophet to expound the law, no priest or Levite to teach the knowledge of the Lord, no means of grace. The word of the Lord is scarce. There are no open vision. The reason is good preaching will make people good subject. So in Mark chapter 6 and verse 34, we see people without a shepherd. They are scattered as sheep, having no shepherd, for want of the masters of assemblies to call them together. So this was the understanding of that time. In Hosea chapter 4 and verse 6, the scripture says, they perish, they are destroyed for lack of knowledge. Because the knowledge is in the mouth of the priest. The knowledge is in the mouth of the prophet. That was an understanding at that time. So this brings us to the next point, that the revelation of the word of the Lord was resident with a few, the prophets and the priests. But we must be very grateful for today, because the understanding of God is shifting. Today there is an explosion of divine revelation. God no longer has to speak to only two sets of people in the society, the prophets and the priests, or the Levites. Paul began to speak about this revelation when he wrote to the brethren in Colossae, when he said, Christ in you, that is the hope of glory. And then in the book of Acts, he said, we are the sons of the prophet. Joel had already said many, many years ago in his document, and it shall come to pass that I will pour out my spirit upon all flesh. All flesh. So today, the understanding of God dwells with everyone. And so the first issue that has been resolved is there are no scarcity of divine revelation, because there is an explosion in the understanding of God. See what reason we have today to be thankful to God for the plenty of open vision which we enjoy. But I'm now taking it into a step further. What is vision in the context of today? If you want to start an organization, the first thing they are going to ask you is, or you will come across is, what is your vision? And then what is your mission statement? What is your vision and what is your mission statement? And so I've taken you through the understanding of the scriptures in that time. But in today's world, what is vision? That will lead me to begin to speak on that subject right away. Vision is the very thing that came to this world with you. And that very thing is what you do, and it gives you fulfillment. That very thing is what you do without getting paid, and yet you are happy doing it. That very thing is what you do, and it gives you empowerment on the inner man. Vision is who you are. People don't really care about your name. They are more interested with what the name represents. There are certain people in the world today that if you call their name, people know what they stand for. In other words, their vision is speaking so loud that wherever their name is mentioned, you know what they stand for. And so what the world is more interested in knowing you for is your vision. Not really about where you were born, not about your humble beginning, but who are you? Who are you? In Jeremiah chapter 1 and verse 5, he said, before I formed you in your mother's womb, I knew you, and I ordained you to be a prophet unto the nations. So your vision is that package that comes with you. But the sad reality is that a lot of people go to school to study things that they were never shaped to become. And so they spend 6 years or 10 years in school only to come out and discover that that is not what they were created to do. It doesn't give them fulfillment. And another sad thing is, I know parents who push their children, this is what I want you to become, this is what I want you to become, because of a kind of vision that they have. Vision is the thing, the very thing that you were packaged with and sent into this world. But here is the twist. It is your responsibility to discover it. Nobody is going to discover it for you. That is my major concern. The discovery of your vision, which is the purpose of your existence, is your responsibility. And so we have people born into this world. Before they get to discover their vision, they are already 50. Some discover it when they are already 90. Isn't that sad? Your vision will always look like you. Copying the vision of another person makes you a photocopy and denying you your originality. So your vision looks like you. Another man's vision makes you look different. So because you were born with that attribute, because you are born with it, does not mean you will become it. Because your vision is a treasure hidden within your soul. There is a lot of work to do to discover it. You will be known for your vision. In fact, your vision is a voice that amplifies your personality. But as I speak to you, a lot of people have not discovered it. And you know the sad thing? The sad thing is people think that their vision is external. And that is why from the day that they were born, they began to go to all sort of schools invented by different men and women, because every school is founded by man. They begin to go to this school studying subjects. Some courses you have about 40 credits, some 120 credits, some 160 credit. All these are external things you are studying. What are you trying to do? You are trying to understand what another man has already penned down based on his understanding. And you know the sad part? We attend all these institutions and forget to attend the institution of self. Can you imagine how many years we spend to study things that will never be useful to us? But we never devote time to understand who we are. University of self. You don't know who you are. You don't know yourself. But you are busy studying to understand all the subject matter of being a medical doctor, to understand all the subject matter of being a lawyer, to understand all the subject matter of being a pilot, to understand all the subject matter of even being a clergy, a pastor, to understand all the subject matter of who is an engineer, to understand all the subject matter of who is, there are so many of them. You know them. You will study from kindergarten, you get into primary level, you get into secondary level, subjects upon subjects you are studying, subject upon subject, and then there are some field you go, it takes you over 10 years, it takes you 5 years, sometimes it can take you close to 15 years to understand a particular subject. And unfortunately, you never devoted time to yourself. Are you not seeing people with master's degree? Are you not seeing graduates, PhD, HND, OND, diplomas? And yet they are not living fulfilled lives. They've invested all their lives to understand subjects and things that are external to their personality, except themselves. Isn't that sad? The University of Self. The things you are studying and paying so much for are external things that were created by others. What are you going to create? You can't create, because vision is what gives you direction to begin to discover what nobody else has discovered. You see, every one of us, the world is big enough for everyone to come up with an invention. All of it, the objective is to make life easy for the next man. But unfortunately, we have people who have never discovered who they are. They don't know who they are. And sadly enough, some go to their graves without fully understanding who they are. That will bring me to my next point. The greatest tragedy in life is not to exist, but to die without knowing why you came here. Let me say that again. The greatest tragedy of life is not to exist, no, but to die without knowing why you came here. Dr. Miles Monroe made a statement one time, and a very heavy statement. He said the richest place in the world is not where gold mines are discovered. It's not where platinum are discovered. It's not where the best kind of architects did the design. It's not in the best kind of skyscrapers. But the richest place in the whole world is a cemetery. Because in that cemetery lies visions that never came to fruition. Books that were never written. Selves that were never discovered. Products that can help humanity that were never invented. Things that was never brought into reality. Because the man in whose womb or in whose soul was the substance of this reality never tapped into it. And I want to ask you listening to this right now. Time is running really, really fast. Have you discovered who you are? Does your personality have a voice? Or all it has is echoes? That very thing you are doing right now, does it give you fulfillment? Does it give you peace of mind? Does it give you what? In fact, the greatest thing every visionary have, which is better than money, is fulfillment. Are you fulfilled in what you are doing? The things you are pursuing externally, are you pursuing internally also? Have you started the university of studying who you are? Have you found you? That's what vision is all about. Vision is that thing you do that gives you fulfillment. Is that thing you do without getting paid, but you are happy. A lot of people associate money with happiness. No. Money can make you happy. But that happiness does not get into the deeper realm of your humanity. That happiness comes from you fulfilling your vision. And so because we are born into this world and we begin to pursue things externally, we begin to find a way to get better outside ourselves. This is where life comes to interrupt. Life comes to interrupt so that you can pay attention to the university of you. We are so busy pursuing other things. We want to be better outside of ourselves. And we forget that you are the major study. Don't get me wrong, pursuing things externally is not bad. But there has to be a balance. It's like you having a job because your personal business is here to give you all that you need. And so you need a job. But the mistake will be to abandon your personal vision for that job, because that job, you can be relieved of it anytime. But no one can give you a sack letter in your vision because you are your boss. And so because of all these things that is happening to us, life comes to interrupt and cause disruption. That's because no matter how busy we are, life assumes that we are not busy. And so circumstances will happen. Life is going to hit you hard. Because life is trying to ask you a question. Why are you here? What did you come to do here? What are you doing to improve humanity? What are you doing to empower the earth? What are you doing to make the earth look more brilliant? Because creation has not ended. We are still creating. Because most often, a lot of people are too lazy to tap into that divine revelation in them that gives clarity of vision, which leads to the discoveries of purpose. Because of this, pain comes to remind you to look at what you've been ignoring. Pain comes to a man or a woman who has not been properly aligned with their vision. And when pain comes, the only thing pain is asking you is, why are you here? That is why I go back to the words of Michael Beckwith. Pain pushes until vision pulls. So because you've spent all your life trying to understand things that are beside you, you've been beside yourself all this while, and because time is going, you are a product of time. And when your time is over, you're going to expire. Because you are not on the path of your vision. Because you are not properly aligned to the path that gives you mastery over life. Life events become painful to you because when these events happen, there is no foundation to translate these events into something positive. Unpleasant circumstances happens to a man who is in his vision as an advantage to know what to improve and what to ignore. But because you have not even discovered who you are, you've not found yourself. When pain comes, the language he speaks is different. simply because there is no vision. Let me tell you the truth. Vision is stronger than pain. But when pain comes without a vision, you're going to feel the weight all over your body. So when pain comes, you must understand that pain is a byproduct of vision. It should produce growth, not suicide or discouragement. Now, because you have not been properly aligned to your vision, when pain comes, you're going to misunderstand the language of that pain. Let me tell you the truth. Whenever anything unpleasant happens to a man who is on his vision, he uses it to rise. Life comes to teach you or to benefit you or to profit you. And so because you've not discovered who you are, whenever life comes to you, it has no purpose because there is no vision to feed on the events of life. And so pain will always overcome the man who has not found himself. Pain will always overshadow the woman who has not found who they are. Pain, pain, pain. If you had done the work, there will be no need for pain to come. Because when pain comes amid vision, the language is different. But when pain comes to a man that has lost foresight of why he's here, that's when such men begin to shout and say, oh, why me? Why did this happen? And all of that. Pain pushes until vision pulls. There is a purpose in your pain. Yes. There is a reason why that pain is happening to you. It's asking you for just one question, one answer. Why are you here? And the day you provide that answer, what would have become pain will disappear entirely. In the account of Hebrews chapter 12, it said, looking unto Jesus, the author and the finisher of our faith, who for the joy that was set before him endured the cross. So why people saw what was done to him as punishment, he had a higher purpose in it. And that purpose was to live and not die without dying for something. And so that joy was before him. And while he was in the cross, his conviction became the sound of his pain. And when your conviction becomes the sound of your pain, what happens is that you live in purpose, not in despair. Why are you here? That is the question pain is asking you. And until you discover why you are here, the pain will not go away. The Lord bless you real good.